The organization charts are especially helpful for the HR departments to know whether the staff at their company live within the entire organization. This structure operates so that every employee falls underneath another employee except to the topmost person or the top manager here. The structure is often used because it encourages people who work in the same area to communicate. Essentially, the functional model allows for easier communication within the department. Good morning and welcome to the session 3 in Unit 3, Management of Principles and Practices in the first semester B.B.A, where we are going to talk about the types of organization structures. Now, this is a very interesting topic. Why? Because as you join an organization, you want to understand on what basis the organization is structured. It might be a simple structure, it might be a matrix-based organization, network model, we do not know. So the employee is highly inquisitive about to know in the factors how a company is actually structured. Who is his reporting boss? What are his peers doing? How they are connected? What is his role designation? And so many other questions that's popping up his mind. But now, let's first try to understand the concept of this organizational system or the structures. Basically, a visual breakdown of structure of your company. Normally, what happens is that I'm just going to give you a map which is going to show you the breakdown in terms of the employees, the department, the system, how it is being structured altogether. Now, when you do that, it shows us the connections. The connections are something like how the employees are connected to various processes, various departments, their reporting heads, their hierarchies, and to which region, division they belong to. So this is a simple chart, a simple visual representation that's going to tell about how the employees are going to be placed inside the organization. Followed by, now for example, let's say that you're going to look into the marketing section with your company's chief marketing officer on the top and all other marketing employees following below the CMO. So let's assume that this person is the chief marketing officer. Under her, we are going to see the different employees who are being structured under different roles and designation. So basically, this is the fundamental diagram that is going to make you understand about your organizational structure. Followed by the purpose of the organizational chart. Organizational chart lay out the foundation structure of an organization and how communication flows through it. So it's a very, very important thing. Why? Because today, if you're going to be selected by the marketing department in the role of a manager for the marketing, then automatically you need to understand how the communication is being synchronized through the entire department. Are you directly going to report to the chief marketing officer? Are you going to report to some intermediary boss? Or are you going to talk to your peer-to-peer? Is it a flat-based organization? How is the structure completely inbuilt? So that's why you need to understand the structure of the organization and the communication factors that are being designed here. So at the end of the day, you will be able to understand to whom am I reporting to. Followed by, it provides the way for every member of the company to know about their co-workers. Very, very important here. I would always say that this word is highly important. You need to know the people with whom are you working. So this is where you will try to understand that the department consists of, let's say, 50 people. All the 50 people are from diverse backgrounds and they would be working under different capacities. You would also come to know under what structure, under what system, how does the department work, and what are all the organizational objectives. So that's why this will provide you an insight into how each and every member are being put into the organization. Followed by, the organization charts are especially helpful for the HR departments to know whether the staff at their company live within the entire organization. So there might be organizations in this world where we are talking about the complicated networks like the matrix-based reporting. You might have people reporting from different regions, different zones altogether. But nevertheless, what we are trying to understand from the HR department standpoint is that we want to see where the staff of their company live within the entire organization. So I always assume and I always think on this factor that the organization chart is the fundamental factor through which you will be able to understand the entire set of activity. So you need to look at it very, very clearly. You need to understand where exactly the flow is built and how we are going to look into it. Followed by, let's move forward in terms of understanding the organizational chart also helps the employees to communicate effectively as they are aware for whom are they working, in which department they are working, and what is the product of the company. Now let's take for example Hindustan Lever Limited, and you are going to join there as a product manager. Now the main challenge in a company like Hindustan Lever Limited, which has got hundreds of products, the biggest part is that you need to know which product you are handling for which zone, which territory, which area, and what is the nature of the product. So what people tend to do is that they assume that yes, they are a part of everything and they start taking up work from every corner. But the reality is that HR wants you to know your job role and description correctly so that you fit into the organization at the right time, at the right place. So that's why it is very important for us to know and to understand the geographies, the factors under which you're working, how it is going to work, what are all the different sections and phenomenon, and then you start building up this organization. So that's why I say that utilizing an organizational chart will help us to make sure everyone is accounted for, allowing the management to schedule one-on-one with the employees and for the office managers, the people teams, and everything that has been accounted for. So when we are planning for this work activity, it is something that is getting inbuilt. So this is very, very important for each one of us to understand and move forward. You need to see that each and every member in the organization works together, accounts for the development, accounts for each and every activity, sees to that the product, the line of reporting, the verticals, how we are doing it, what are all the schedule with each and every officer, with the employee, what kind of a role are we playing within the team externally so that the organization works smoothly. Followed by the hierarchical organization structure. This is a very, very common organizational structure that we have been speaking about. Now, starting up with the base factor, this is the most common factor, and this is structured at the leadership at the top, all the C-level executives that you can think about, and then their staffs follow under them. Which means starting with the CEO, then we will have the COO, then we will have the CFO, then we might have the CTO, followed by the CMO. Like this, we have all the C-level executives under this role, followed by their staff members who will be located under them. So this is a typical hierarchical organization structure, not much of complication. It is just about, you have to just climb the ladders of success to achieve that particular post. Yes, these are all, tall structured organization altogether. Followed by this structure operates so that every employee falls underneath another employee except to the topmost person or the top manager here. Now this is very, very common. Why? Because historically speaking, it's a more straightforward way to manage an organization. A big challenge for an organization today is that where do I track and control my employees' performance? Now, we are not here to just hold the employee by his collar, but what we really want to see is that if there is going to be a problem in communication, if there is going to be a problem in terms of understanding issues, then we need to have a reporting structure in place so that we will be able to get along, we will be able to understand where this problem is happening. So that's why I would say that the structure here is very, very clear. It has to be built in such a manner so that we are able to understand, we are able to develop ourselves to that extent as far as possible. Followed by the functional organization structure, which is very, very important here. Now, what happens here is that they group people together based on their functions. For example, all individuals touching operations are grouped together. Now, when I talk about a functional organization structure here, that itself means that I'm trying to group people based on the nature of the function. So it is very important for all of us here to understand how is the nature of the function that is going to be talked about. So we are going to talk about HR as a team, then we will talk finance as a team, probably marketing as a team. So now what happens here is that I'm just grouping people with their senior management. So my organization is functionally a very, very strong organization. Normally, this kind of structure is found in consulting companies. Why? If you ask me, because consulting organizations have a lot of things in place. What they typically tend to do is that they give advices to the different departments of other companies. So what happens? They have a cluster of experts in each and every division who handle exclusive cases, who handle exclusive kind of factors for the company. It's not going to be that easy for a consulting company to just give some ideas. So they need subject matter experts. So that's why they cluster, they put the organization into the functional zones altogether. Followed by, the structure is often used because it encourages people who work in the same area to communicate. Essentially, the functional model allows for easier communication within the department. It's very, very important for us. Why? Because it allows you to communicate within the department. HR will have its own set of policies, own documentation. They have their own queries. They have their own ideas, opinions, which they want to know. So yes, it is easier for me to talk within the department, get the approval done, get moving it faster. Similarly, marketing tomorrow wants to launch a new product. They want to set their own ad campaigns. So they know that they have the team in place. They can talk within the team, get to the next project and keep moving. So what happens here is that the communication becomes very, very easy. And that's the central point of this entire exercise altogether. Followed by the horizontal or the flat organizational structure. Now, this is quite common in certain organizations who do not want to have too much of reporting basis. So that's why we see here flat or horizontal structure provides us a direct contact between upper management and regular staff management, the members. Essentially, a flat is one where they eliminate the middle management. They have a top management and they have a bottom level management. So it is directly from the top level to the worker level contact altogether. So what happens by this? Now, what happens by this is that the workers or the employees have a direct contact with the top management. So you don't have to waste time going through the levels of hierarchy. All you have to do is that you have a query, you shoot a mail directly to the top management. You tell them clearly that this is the reason, these are the issues, these are the challenges. So I want to know what can be done at the minimum point of time that is being given to me. So the decision-making process becomes easier. In a flat structure, the decision can be made at a quicker level altogether. Time consumption factor is really less here. So that's why people support this flat level organization structure. Now, if you look into a bank like HSBC, HSBC typically follows a flat structure. They don't have too many people in the levels of management. Why? Because they understand that it is more important for the work to happen. The workflow should not get disturbed. And if there are any issues, the employee should be in a position to reach out to the manager at the earliest possible. So that's why I would always say horizontal or flat structure organization is very, very recommended one. Followed by the factor here is that it is especially helpful for increased employee involvement in decision making, and also, as we have spoke about, the communication level that we have been talking about. Now let's talk about it for a minute here. Now, when I say employee involvement, that means to say that each and every employee in the organization will have the right to be a part of the decision making, will have the right to be a part of the each and every activity that takes place. So he will have a word. Now, what happens in many of the organizations which follow the tall structure, too much of hierarchy, when you talk about Indian Railways kind of thing, what happens at the top level probably will not reach the bottom level. They just make the decision at the top level and throw the decision to the workers. So here the workers might feel that we have not been consulted at all. We have never been inquired about the situation at all. So why is that factor that we have not been given a chance? So that is why we say that an horizontal or a flat organization structure will help the direct involvement of the employee inside. So this is highly recommended. It is mandatory for each one of us to understand. By having this kind of a structure, you will be able to communicate better. You will be able to involve the employees at a higher level. Followed by now the divisional organization structure. What is a divisional organization structure? Where you divide the employees by the geography, location, products, markets with which they work. So you have a Asia region, you might have a Japan region, you might have a US or a North American market, South American market. So what we are trying to do, we are going to divide people according to the geographies, according to the work location, according to a divisional segments. Now, for example, when you talk about manufacturing companies, they might have their own division, printer division. You might have something like automobile division, electrical division. You might have something related to software division. So what typically happens is that you divide people according to specialization, according to the products or the geographies under which they are dividing, and each one of the segment will have their own CEO, will have their own people, will have their own managers who are managing it. Now, division is typically possible for those companies which have an n number of activities involved. When you look into companies like Tata, when they have about 29 odd companies under them, so each one of them will be treated as a division. So each division will have its own organizational structure. Followed by, now this structure is used for organizations that split their employees into product teams or work specifically in geographical areas. Now, for example, if Google were to operate under divisional model, then they might split the employees based on the products, including the Google Chrome, Google Maps, Google Play, or Google Business, whatever is that. What they try to do here is that they try to split their employees based on the need of the product. So whichever product has got a higher demand, whichever product needs more attention, whichever product needs more specialization, they could probably find the strength, they could probably find out what exactly is needed, and they can divide and run the system accordingly. So that's why I would say that divisional organization structure are also a very effective way of improving the organization and involving people into it. Followed by the matrix. The matrix organization structure, as you look here, functions in such a way that every employee reports to two managers. One manager might be based out of India, one manager might be based out of the US. So what happens here is that this is with respect to the specific department. So you have a manager in your local station who is your immediate reporting boss, who is also a part of the project, and then you have another manager who's parallelly located in another part of the world or another geography altogether, who's also like a superior, who's also from a cross-disciplinary function for the team. So what happens here is that you will get the right mix and match in terms of leadership, where you will see there is a functional manager, there's also a technical manager. So you will have a combination of multiple people who are involved in the project. So now what happens? The growth of this structure is also definitely going to be a little bit complex, but then the learning that you get out of a matrix-based organization is simply splendid. So that's why most of the organization will also try to adapt into this matrix base, where you will see that the learning part, the growth part is also there, and everybody will try to build their system accordingly. Followed by, there are three types of which: the weak matrix, the balanced matrix, and the strong matrix. A weak matrix operates so that each employee only reports to the direct manager. A project manager is still in position authority but does not have much of influence. A balanced matrix is where more authority is given to the project manager, but a strong matrix is one that puts the project and the direct manager in the same line of authority. So when you talk about a strong matrix organization, these are the organizations where you will see that both the people have been given the same post designation line of authority. So each one of them can contribute for the development of the organization. So that's why I say that this is very, very important in terms of understanding the growth perspectives. Followed by the team-based organization. What is a team-based organization? Where people work together with each other in form of teams for the same goal. Now, when these employees are working towards a similar task, they work independently to complete the individual task and project. This organizational structure is less hierarchical than the other organizational counterparts. Now, what happens in a team-based organization? People work together as a common goal, as a common process parts all together. They work or they operate independently to compete in terms of the task and projects that's been given. This is less hierarchical, which means to say that there will not be much of reporting managers or boss. Why? Because they are working towards a common goal. So the ideologies are common. They don't believe in too much of formalities. They just work like informal groups and they complete the task. Followed by the network organization structure. Just look at the complication here. This looks like a spider web with people spun around everywhere, but then that's the factor. Let's talk about it. Why? Because the network structure is another less hierarchical organizational feature. A network framework is based on the structure of social interactions where people open communication is the key. Let's talk about LinkedIn. When you look into LinkedIn, you find the similar kind of a structure because people have the rights to present their communication at their will and wish. It's an open communication system where you put on your views and ideas. This is more about how management is able to see the relationship externally and internally with the company. So this is more about the social network, how we build relationship with the different members of the team and start operating together. So this is quite a complex kind of thing. This does not work out with all kind of companies. Probably this is more for a virtual-based kind of a company. Followed by, they describe the structure more as a cutting edge than the traditional. Definitely, yes. Why? Because the kind of organization that LinkedIn or Facebook has built over the years is definitely something which will actually help the bottom-up people to be a part of the decision-making, more open communication, and people can come back and say, this is what we are looking into. So what happens here is that people will be involved in the choice-making, in the decision, and they will be able to make a better decision altogether. With this, I come to the end of today's session. I hope and believe that all the inputs and results that has been shared through this particular session will be of a great help, both in terms of practical as well as in the theory of knowledge. But in the next session, we are going to talk more about the concepts of the organization, forms committee, the span of control, and other factors. So until then, stay tuned, stay blessed, and stay enlightened forever. Thank you once again for joining me today on this wonderful session.